He believes in a perspective for a low-carbon society, with ideally the society starting to get awareness and attitude to it, and everyone choosing and acting its own decarbonization levels, as opposed to being forced to a drastic change because of the inertia. Nadia Casatta is a molecular biology with a PhD in industrial biotechnology. Before joining Diapath in 2018, Dr. Casatta worked at the Water Research Institute of CNR, the National Research Center in Italy, dealing with the effects of different pollutants on aquatic organisms. She is now a researcher within the Innovation Department in Diapath, and she is part of the Innovation Department team, and she daily faces several tasks, including intellectual property protection, the development of new innovative projects in the anatomic pathology field from conception to proof of concept. She is showing us today the first steps Diapath is taking in the direction of increasing awareness of its environmental impact and what may be the best actions planned to reduce the company's footprint on the planet. Before we start listening to them, I would like to ask you your contribution in terms of questions. Any question that might pop up into your mind is very welcome and is precious for us. The speakers are more than happy to be given the opportunity to clarify concepts or to extend on what they will be presenting soon. And now it is time for me to give the floor to Dr. Bruyére.
Okay, thank you. So I should now share my screen. I hope you can see it. You can see it?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So I have to correct a small mistake. Antonella, I'm not a doctor. I'm just an engineer. I'm doing my best here, but I'm an engineer. But indeed, I'm working mainly on carbon topics. So I'm mainly in carbon footprint management. And so I'm very glad to be here and to speak about carbon and mainly about road to sustainability. And I must say, I really like the title "Road to Sustainability" because the word road it indeed mean that it could be lots of roads. Could be a paved road, could be the freeway, could be a mountain road. Sometimes the road is difficult, sometimes it's easy, but the road is always different. And I'm glad also to be here to introduce in short words how we did cooperate with Diapath for a specific program about carbon footprints, which is the EIC, so the European Innovation Council Management Program. Well, so let's start, but before I go a bit deeper in the details about this cooperation, well, a few words just to mention what you already know, that climate change is a challenge. We have lots of things to deal with, and it's urging. So we already see lots of damages. Well, every time you hear, you look at the newspaper, you will see a lot of not so very good news regarding climate. We have heat waves. We have more and more damages and budget dedicated to solving these issues. You saw Pakistan floods. You saw the heat waves that we are even now currently facing. Also, some droughts like in the USA. We have some action plan at the same time. So we have European Green Deal, which is ongoing, which is a big project which aims at having everyone imply in this objective of reducing the causes of climate change, and especially the carbon emissions. And with a specific objective of reducing of 55% the level of emission by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. Good thing that we are on a good track, but still we did lots of effort already. But now, since we are going to address the details, also the levels which are the difficult to reach. So we'll need the implication, the engagement from everyone, including the SMEs. And at the same time, so maybe in the assistance, there would be people in charge of so managing corporates, managing the SMEs, and so there are some awareness raising from everyone. So not only people in the street, but also people in the professional position. Now they are also asking for more and more engagement from their companies that are very, very sensitive to that. So what is the role of SMEs in that topic? So anyway, we need to reduce our level of emissions, and SMEs are part of it. So most of the time, we tend to hear that SMEs are small companies. They can do a lot of things because they are already trying to grow their business. Well, of course, this is true. They already have a lot of things to address, especially at a small scale. But at the same time, SMEs constitute 99% of companies in the EU. So they are huge parts of the existing companies. And like everyone, like any citizen, they have a role to play in it. So if we want to reach the level of emissions that we would like to reach, I mean, if we follow the science, then we have to try to follow the best pathway, which means that we have to reduce our emission even when we are growing our business. That's why we need you, basically. If you are SME, you cannot be out of this challenge. You are part of it. So most of the time, we have more and more SMEs now proposing products which allow the society to reduce their level of emissions. So we have lots of better product with a better energy efficiency, for instance. We have product with biosourced materials, which is great. So we have lots of innovations, but at the same time also it's part of the SMEs to try to include this reflection about greenhouse gas reducing even in their day-to-day routine. So what are the company's benefits? It's not only about being, how can we say that, like being proud of fighting against climate change. It's a bit larger. And there are also some economical benefits in it. So for instance, the competitiveness, it's definitely increased now. Now, if you are in the position to show that you are engaged in this objective of reducing greenhouse gas emission. Now, we also have more and more big corporates, companies, clients will definitely ask each SME to prove that the products, the services are low carbon in different ways. So you will see that what we are currently discussing now is a way to show that the products which is manufactured by some company is compliant with this objective. There are also some sustainable development goals at the larger scale, especially United Nations have provided a framework for that, so you can show that you are compatible with this framework. There are also a question of reducing the costs, because when you are optimizing the greenhouse gas emission, most of the time you're also reducing your costs because you are optimizing your fluxes. The good thing also is that employees tend to be very motivated when they see that their company is engaged into greenhouse gas reducing, emission reduction, and for the image, it's also a good thing. So you see, for instance, that we have here a cooperation between Diapath and our program, which is able to show that there is some tangible engagement for the greenhouse gas reduction. So what is the EIC Greenhouse Gas Programme? So the EIC is the European Innovation Council. Basically, it's Europe's big innovation programs, which in which you may find up to 4,000 different SMEs, most of the time innovative SMEs, a lot with environmental objectives. And the EIC aims to develop and to promote these SMEs with some breakthrough technologies. So, and the EIC as a European arm, they also propose some services for the SMEs just to help them develop and also include environmental management. And one of this program is the EIC Greenhouse Gas Programme with different objectives that you can see on the screen. So the objective was to measure the carbon impacts, so one of the environmental criteria, to set a roadmap, so how to be able to decrease their level of emissions in the next years. So of course, to reduce the footprint, and then to be able to finance climate action by proving it, and of course to communicate. So this program occurred during the last 2 years. So it started in 2021, and the first period actually did end in some months ago, but it will probably continue in the next years. So what's in the EIC program? You have a lot of things, but one of the core things of the program is a tool. It's a carbon simulation tool. So this EIC Greenhouse Gas tool, the name of it, is a dedicated tool publicly available. So it means that everyone could have access to it once they just get the link from the EIC. But during the program, there was also specific support for the EIC beneficiaries, meaning that if you are a beneficiary from the EIC, you can have the support of some experts to help you self-assess your carbon footprint, because it's all what it's all about. It's about self-assessing the greenhouse gas emissions of your company, not your products, but your company, and then simulate the mitigation potential. So what measures you could implement to reduce your emissions, and then to be able to track over the years and monitor your emissions. So of course it is difficult, because you will see that as a SME, you probably grow your business, so you will have more emissions in the next years. But at the same time, you can still try to improve the efficiency of your activity and be able, for instance, to have a better intensity, so meaning that you will have less emissions per unit of product, for instance, manufacturers. And then you can also be able to promote your solution via the EIC community to all the other SMEs. So on the right, you can see a screenshot from the tool, where basically it's a big questionnaire with lots of questions about your consumption. So how many kilowatt you need for your yearly activity, from which energy, do you have air conditioning, what kind of food do you buy for your company, what kind of basic material, raw material, if you are producing thing, do you need, what kind of waste do you generate, do you have some investments? It's quite large, but it's all open, so meaning that you can start addressing just the most important categories for you, and then see to what extent you have some greenhouse gas emission related to each category. And once you are done, you can see the result, and you can see the breakthrough of emission, meaning where are your emissions and how you can tackle it. So I won't enter the detail, and I will just give the floor then to Nadia, who will explain what she has done with Diapath, because it will be better to understand from a use case what it's all about, but I can at least share some results. So with that program, we reach a reduction of more than 30% over 5 years. So it's a commitment, so meaning that the companies, they intend to implement some measures over the next 5 years, and doing so, they will reduce 30% of their current carbon footprint, which is quite ambitious, but it's also aligned with what is needed from a societal point of view, because we are expecting at least to reduce between 4 and 5% per year, which is also a huge effort, but which is needed if we want to be compliant with the IPCC recommendation. So we have about like 50 SMEs which completed everything, which went to the end of the exercise. We had about 160 SMEs which are tool users. Some are still entering the data and trying to collect the data to have something to analyze. And we have a lot of commitments. So commitment is quite large, but we have more than 500 commitments, so meaning different measures for which companies have publicly engaged through a kind of a contract to do in the next years. And one of them being Diapath. So you can see also to illustrate it, top 5 of the selected measures, like promote the public transport. For SMEs, it's quite important, because most of the time everything is happening in a small office. Avoid flight travel, because it's a lot of emission related to it. Promote active short distance mobility. Communicate on the carbon footprint might be one of the things also. Or change lights. It's quite large actually, and we have like 40 measures in different categories to simulate. So this is it for me, and I will give the floor to Nadia now.
Okay, thank you. I will just show you now with my presentation. I just ask you a little check if you can see my screen properly.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. So thanks first, Sebastien, for your availability of sharing with us this opportunity. And thanks to Dr. Savio for the introduction. I will briefly present a little bit Diapath reality for those that do not know what we do. And especially I will focus on what we started to do for our commitment to the reduction of our impact and our experience in the GHG program that Sebastien presented. As to Diapath, it's an Italian-based company, and we provide high-quality solutions to pathologists, lab scientists, and lab professionals in the anatomic pathology field all around the world. We have a complete portfolio of instruments, reagents, consumables that are all necessary for the proper management of biological samples from the patient up to the definition of a diagnosis. As you can read, our mission is to contribute to a better diagnosis for the patients, offering customers a complete range with the high-quality solutions in terms of usability, reliability, safety, and also respect for the environment. So nowadays, with the advancement of precision medicine and the approval also of an increasing number of target therapies, the proper management of the patient sample is becoming more and more crucial. Also because of the fact that whether the sample is histological or cytological, in most cases it's unique and unrepeatable. So it's in this, within this context that Diapath Innovations fit with the aim of, as I have already said, giving samples the cutting edge handling it deserves. Diapath is a reality based near Bergamo in the north of Italy, and it's really a fast-growing company. And we are building a network of clients and dealers in really more than 90 countries all around the world. So now the question is, how is it possible to conciliate this fast-growing company expanding all around the world with the focus on sustainability? Also because you should consider that Diapath produces chemicals and instruments that are basically not the best starting point for a sustainable focus. However, some years ago, we started to ask ourselves what we could do with the certainty that even with the small changes, as Sebastien said before, we need that everybody play its role, even if it's not the biggest impact, but the road has to be taken and steps have to be added little by little to reach the goal that the European government set for 2050. So I just want to underline the fact that when we had to decide what to do for decreasing our carbon footprint, you have to remember that we produce and distribute a lot of chemicals all around the world. Moreover, in the laboratory workflow, there is a kind of a transformation that make our reagents that comes into contact with biological samples, transformation into special waste. So most of our chemicals has to be disposed of according to regional regulations. So we could not start our road to sustainability from the raw materials, but we had to start focusing on other aspects. And just as an example, I just show you our measure we took for primary and secondary packaging improvement. So what we did, we switched the tanks and bottles of our reagents from glass or other type of plastics to PET. Why PET? Because among the different kind of plastics, it has a really great capacity to weight ratio. And with this, we could really reduce the weight of our plastic packaging. And wherever possible and compatible with the reagents that we sell, we also switch to recycled PET, which has even a lower carbon footprint. What we obtain with this, we obtain a reduction of, as you can read, of 50–60% of the weight of our packaging on more than 400,000 units that we sell per year. Which means a saving of 30 tons of CO2 equivalents. What does it mean? On the right side of the screen, you can see what it corresponds to, which is not the solution of environmental pollution on the planet, but still it's quite a lot for this, let's say, small intervention. And then, apart from this, we did quite a lot of other measures like in this direction. But at the point, we found that we needed to choose whether to continue with small actions that could maybe end up only in uncoordinated or superficial changes, or to start a new structure path, which is what we started participating in the European GHG program that Sebastien introduced us before. We had the opportunity to participate into this program thanks to an EIC accelerator grant that Diapath won in 2019. And this gave us the chance to enter this program, and I can really anticipate you that it gave a great boost and a much greater awareness on Diapath impact on the environment. So just as Sebastien showed, the program offers support and really great expertise to assess, track, and efficiently decide for a reduction of carbon footprint. And it's basically conceived onto 3 steps, so calculation, reduction, and the final goal of reaching carbon neutrality. What Diapath did was at the beginning of 2022, we started our journey with the step of data collection. That, as also Sebastien said before, is the most complicated because you need to collect the data that maybe you are not even aware of where to go and ask. It's been a hard task, I would say, because I went knocking on my colleagues' doors asking for numbers and data and again and again. But finally, with quite a great satisfaction, we completed the first step of carbon footprint calculation and we obtained our first badge. But I don't want to say I didn't want to say that it's been hard because I want to demotivate anybody. It's something that you really, if you have in mind, you really should do. And it's difficult just the first time because, for example, this year we did our calculation again for 2022, and it's I can really say that it's been much easier. So it's something you can do. And then we move to the second objective of the program, which is the commitment to reduction. Just briefly, the tool is based on on a structured and precise way of calculating the effect of the measures that you start, basing on scope 1 and 2 and scope 3 emissions, which are more direct emissions for scope 1 and 2 and indirect emissions for scope 3. Like logistics, waste, business travel, and so on. You have to define specific actions for both categories. And I just show you these graphs only because I want you to understand, for example, if you look at scope 3 graph, you can imagine that with this in front of you, you can easily visualize which are the aspects with the highest incidence of on your impact and on your reality. So as a consequence, it's also easy to understand which are the most important aspects where to work on. And finally, we also reached the second badge for our commitment to reduce our impact over the next 5 years, which I think will be really tricky because we are really a fast-growing company, and normally when you grow as a company, you also grow as a mission. But we will do our best to work on the aspects we can to reduce our emissions for the future. And finally, I want to share also another nice moment that we had last December when we were asked to share our path into this program and with the tool, and we were invited to the summit that was held in Brussels last December, where we had the chance to share our experience and also be really inspired by many other realities and other SMEs, we are, for other actions to be taken and to be started in the future. I just finally came to an end. Of course, what we did is just a starting point for a much bigger and longer journey. As Sebastien said, it's a road that is not always straight and easy, but it has to be taken for everybody. And we are really confident that with the awareness that we acquired during this experience, we will be able to take decisions for the future in a much more conscious way. So now I thank you all for your attention, and I would be glad to reply together with Sebastien to any questions and curiosity about this very nice topic.
Okay, thank you both for your interesting presentations. Now it is time for a question and answer session, and I've got some questions for both of you, starting with Sebastien. So your talk today and this webinar represents one of the actions suggested by the EIC GHG program. So promote your solutions and inspire others. This is in line, Sebastien, with your thought, with your belief in the benefits of individual choices for a more aware society. Could you give us an idea of what's going on in this direction? So your company receives requests for your contributions from many companies. And how many companies are also asking you to participate in this sharing of knowledge and awareness?
Oh, good question. A lot, would say, but for different reasons. The good thing, it's a usual question that we have when we do work in that topic is like, how does it feel? Like, do people really want to reduce emissions, or do you feel like there is a lot of greenwashing? Well, it depends. It depends always on who you are talking to, but what I can say is I'm in charge of a department in Ramboll France when we do only take care of carbon management topics, and we have lots of requests because companies. So in the EIC Greenhouse Gas Programme, it was a bit specific because it was a free service for the EIC beneficiaries. So we didn't have to push a lot for them to be interested because they just came because it was great to have such a service for free. Most of the time, you have to pay for that. So they came because it was easy to come. But for the other companies which tend to come to us and to ask about our services, most of the time it's also because the regulations are evolving a lot now. It's become, there are more and more constraints. So either for carbon reporting, so more and more companies are asked to report regularly on their carbon emissions. So now it's more for the big corporates because it's under a certain threshold you are not obliged to report, but because also of the fact that the big companies have to report on their emissions, and now they have to report more and more on the scope 3 emissions, which are indirect emissions, they ask everyone to report. It's a domino effect. So they ask all the small companies which are not obliged by the law to report now to report also, because they need to have some numbers for their own reporting. So most of the time they come for because they have to, but also the good thing that most of the time they say that they have to, and they are also very keen on knowing more about their own activity. So it's good.
Okay, so you are talking about Europe or all the world?
We do now. There's a lot of activity in Europe, also because we are based in France and we have lots of requests coming from European companies. But so we are also dealing with the rest of the world, but not the same way. Actually, it's more like most of the time when we have companies which are investing in the rest of the world, like for new projects, they also have to report on the carbon emission of a new project for most of the sectors now, and they have to also run carbon footprint assessments, for instance, if they are having a new activity in some country in Africa, so they have to do that. So yeah, indeed we are, most of the time it's company based in Europe because it's our usual clients, but it's for everywhere. So
regulations are probably more strict in Europe, and this is a good way to push the industry and the companies to do something. Once you have simulated reduction of the carbon emission, do you measure the final results? So how can you prove your simulation is true?
So most of the time it's a bit like when you do publish some scientific article, you have to write something and then to ask for a peer review. So we use the same process. So most of the time when we ask, like when we do propose this exercise for SMEs, So of course, paying for a consultant to run the computation, it's a lot of money. And what we did, for instance, in the EIC Greenhouse Gas Programme, we did offer a specific tool which was a bit easier to use, so that they can, like Nadia did, self-assess the data. But of course, Nadia knows a company, but she's not a carbon computation expert. So, but I can say now maybe she is now. But before entering the program, she was not. And so what we did is that we did control the orders of magnitude of the results. We did control most of the biggest sources of emission, just to see if it was like comparable to other activities, to other similar activities, and we did discuss a lot actually with them, just to be sure that the data provided was in line with what we are expected to find. But also we know a bit, like, depending on the big sectors, depending on the type of activities for HSME, we know a bit what we could expect in terms of emissions per year. So we know that, for instance, if they are producing something, it would be that level of emissions. If they do provide services, it would be more and more that level of emissions. So that's also a way to screen.
And another question is your solutions, your proposals, and sometimes might come to a conflict with the growth of the business. So have you faced, what do you do when there is this kind of conflict?
Maybe we can answer that one together, Nadia, because it's also your case. So indeed, so that's a bit, for big companies, they have to reduce emissions, but they have an activity which is more or less stable over the years. So let's say that it's a bit easier for them to say that they will avoid 20% of their emission in the next 10 years. Okay, for SMEs, indeed. So sometimes we have to discuss with a company which was actually one guy working in one office developing his business. He was at the starting point. He knew that the next year he will start to manufacture something, but at that time he had just emissions related to the activity of his computer. So of course, asking him to report 20% of the emission of his computer, it was a bit tricky. But so to avoid that, we also suggested some specific rule for SME, which focuses on the intensity. So meaning that we will deal with an indicator which has been used actually by Nadia in Diapath, which is level of emissions per product, for instance, or per employee, for instance.
I can add in at this topic that I was talking with a person just yesterday. He works for a big company, and he was saying that, for example, if you look at numbers per se, you maybe can see an increase year by year because you have an increase in the production and increase in the and of course in the emissions of the company. But what you can really do is to work in the direction of decreasing the emissions, like per ton of product that you sell. So for the same amount of product that you can produce, you can work on those aspects that will reduce the impact on the production. For example, from the logistic point of view, from the disposal of the product, or increasing the lifespan. There are really a lot of aspects in which you start thinking about and you can work on. So,
okay, so Nadia, let's go on with you. When and why Diapath chose to enter this program?
Related to the aspects of the sustainability, actually, it was something that started quite some years ago. Of course, it's not being easy because as I said, we also produce chemicals and we sell chemicals all around the world. So in terms of transportation and logistics or raw material, we are not the most sustainable. When we worked with Sebastien and within the program, there was really a big gap in terms of absolute numbers. Like SMEs, like he was saying, like one guy working at his laptop, and our impact of a company with more than 100 people, with the production department and with the logistic department. So in terms of absolute number, it's been hard to compare with the other realities. But still, the most important thing that I had from this experience is really the awareness that really a lot could be done and can be done. So in terms of really first education of the people, and that's one of the reasons why we are here now, just to try and let the people feel the importance of these teams and what can be done. And why, of course, is I think I could give like obvious answers. Because, but that's actually the truth. So it's one of the aspects that will become more and more important in the future. And it's not that if you wait until when also SMEs will be obliged to have a sustainability report that things will be easier. So if you start in advance, you can really realize and be aware and not to be forced to change everything in a few steps. So that is normally not the best options.
Mm-hmm. So based on your experience in Diapath with this topic, in your opinion, what are the factors that can impact the most on a company environmental impact reduction?
First, I think the people awareness of the problem, both in terms of like as I said, we are more than 100. If everybody, I don't know, just would share the car with the people living just by his side, we would just have half of the emissions related to people transportation. So I think that people education is one of the most important things. And second one, I think, is eco design. I've shown the graph of our scope 3 emissions, and most of the longest bar in the graph are related to the products. So like logistics or like other aspects. So if you want to innovate and to create new products, I think one of the most important things is to introduce these concepts from the beginning. So you study new products with specific characteristics so that they will be also compliant with environmental sustainability.
Mm-hmm. So in line with the policy of fostering a sustainability culture, you have showed us the most important changes introduced by the company, but Diapath traditionally has been sharing with sustainability with the clients, so producing instruments allowing to spare materials or energy offering alternative, less toxic reagents. Could you give us an idea what has been done in the pipeline of the company in this direction to increase sustainability?
But yes,
in the surgical pathology departments, because you are selling goods that can be thought and produced and sold in line with an idea of increasing sustainability.
Yes, but I can say that a focus that has been always followed from really the beginning. It's more in general, not only related to carbon emission, but sustainability in terms of also safety for our clients, which are the lab technicians or pathologists, and really a great focus for Diapath has always been the operator safety. So in this direction, we created solutions for proper management of formalin and formaldehyde, which has toxic effect on human health, or other reagents and products that can substitute the most dangerous chemicals that that are normally used in laboratory workflow. So this has always been a really great focus to find other solutions and alternatives that could respect both the operator safety and the environment as well.
Okay, so have you got some questions, one for the other one, or something to add?
But I think that from the moment when we started the collaboration, I did so many questions to Sebastien that yes, when he said that now I'm becoming an expert, it's just thanks to their really their teaching, because it's been really a great opportunity to
learn,
collaborate. Yes.
Yeah.
We always welcome people with questions.
Okay, so I again thank you both. This was very interesting, the discussion as well, and we can finish our webinar. I think we did our best, and now it's time to close, I think. Okay.
Okay, so thanks to you, and see you.
Okay, thank you, Sebastien. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you all.